My birthday had always been a day of celebration, but this year it became the day I crossed a line I could never uncross. It began innocently enough, a gathering of friends and family, laughter filling the air as we toasted another year of my life. My husband, Alex, had gone out of his way to make the day special. Yet, amidst the smiles and laughter, there was an ache inside me I couldn't ignore. Alex and I had been married for 8 years. Our relationship, once passionate and full of life, had dulled over time. The spark that had drawn us together seemed like a distant memory. We lived as companions rather than lovers, each day blending into the next with little to distinguish them. I told myself it was normal, that this was what marriage became after years together, but deep down, I craved something more. Enter Ethan, Alex's best friend. He had been a part of our lives for as long as I could remember, always present at family gatherings, holidays, and even casual nights in. Ethan was charming, confident, and undeniably attractive. He had a way of commanding attention without trying, his charisma filling every room he entered. Over the years, I had grown fond of him, but it was nothing more than friendly admiration. Or so I thought. That evening, as the party buzzed around us, Ethan's presence felt different. He was attentive, his compliments lingering in the air longer than they should. "You look stunning tonight," he said, his eyes locking onto mine in a way that made my heart race. I laughed it off, attributing his behavior to the celebratory atmosphere and the drinks he'd had. But as the night wore on, I found myself gravitating toward him, drawn to the attention I'd been missing for so long. By the time the guests began to leave, I was left with a swirl of emotions I couldn't quite place. Alex had gone to bed early, exhausted from the day's preparations, leaving Ethan and me alone in the living room. The silence between us was heavy, charged with an energy I couldn't ignore. I told myself to get up, to walk away and end the night on a respectable note, but instead, I stayed. "You seemed a little distracted tonight," Ethan said, his voice low and inviting. "Everything okay?" I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. "It's nothing," I said finally, forcing a smile. "Just a lot on my mind." He nodded, his gaze never leaving mine. "You know, if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." Something in his tone sent a shiver down my spine. I knew I should end the conversation, put distance between us before I did something I'd regret. But his presence was intoxicating, and the vulnerability in his eyes mirrored something I felt deep within myself. "Thank you, Ethan," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. The next moment unfolded like a scene from a movie, surreal and beyond my control. He leaned closer, his eyes searching mine for any sign of hesitation. I didn't move, I didn't speak. And then, his lips were on mine. The kiss was electric, igniting something inside me I hadn't felt in years. It was passion, raw and unfiltered, a stark contrast to the routine that had come to define my life. When we finally pulled apart, I was breathless, my mind racing with a mix of exhilaration and guilt. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice laced with regret. "I shouldn't have." "No," I interrupted, my voice steadier than I expected. "I wanted it too." Those words set the course for what happened next. We tried to justify it, telling ourselves it was a one-time mistake, a lapse in judgment fueled by emotions and alcohol. But the connection we'd ignited couldn't be extinguished so easily. Over the following weeks, Ethan and I found ourselves drawn to each other in ways we couldn't explain. Every glance, every touch, every shared moment felt like a secret only we could understand. We told ourselves it was harmless, that as long as no one knew, we weren't really hurting anyone. But deep down, we both knew the truth. The guilt began to eat away at me. Alex was a good man, a loving husband who didn't deserve the betrayal I was inflicting on him. But every time I tried to pull away from Ethan, he would draw me back in, his presence too alluring to resist. He made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years, and I couldn't bring myself to let go. One evening, as Alex sat across from me at dinner, oblivious to the turmoil inside me, I realized the extent of the mess I had created. I was living a double life, torn between the stability of my marriage and the passion I'd found with Ethan. I knew I had to make a choice, but the thought of losing either of them was unbearable. The breaking point came when Ethan confronted me about the future of our relationship. "We can't keep doing this," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "I need to know where we stand." I stared at him, my mind racing. "I don't know," I admitted, tears streaming down my face. "I don't know what to do." "You have to choose," he said firmly. "You can't have it both ways." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. He was right. I couldn't keep living this way, torn between two worlds. But making a choice meant hurting someone I cared about, and the thought of that was almost too much to bear. In the end, the decision was made for me. Alex discovered the truth, finding a series of messages between Ethan and me that left no room for doubt. The confrontation that followed was the most painful moment of my life, his anger and betrayal cutting deeper than I thought possible. "How could you?" he demanded, his voice shaking with emotion. "How could you do this to us?" I had no answer, no excuse that could justify what I'd done. All I could do was apologize, knowing it would never be enough. Our marriage didn't survive the fallout. Alex filed for divorce, and Ethan and I were left to pick up the pieces of the life we'd destroyed. But even as I tried to move forward, the guilt and regret remained, a constant reminder of the line I'd crossed and the damage I'd caused. Looking back, I'm not sure if I would make the same choices again. The passion and connection I found with Ethan were real, but so were the consequences of our actions. Perhaps that's the true tragedy of it all, that something so intoxicating could also be so destructive, leaving nothing but heartbreak in its wake.